Am I the jerk for giving my mother-in-law a fake copy of my house key and exposing her on Christmas dinner? I want to preface this by saying that I, a 34-year-old female, married my husband, 37, a year ago. His mum is snoopy and annoying as frick. She can't help it, that's just how she is, as my dear in-laws always say. My husband and I purchased a new house recently. My mother-in-law kept pushing to get an emergency key. She promised that she'd only use it in an emergency, but given the fact that she had an emergency key to our old apartment and walked in on us being intimate twice, but my husband didn't think it was a big deal, I just couldn't trust her. So I just sent her a fake key after she kept pushing, and she had a smug look on her face after I hand-delivered it to her. Days gone by, and on Christmas dinner, my mother-in-law angrily called me out on the fact that I gave her a fake copy of the house key. She shamed me for doing this in front of everyone else in the family, but in my defensive state, I asked her how she found out, and she said days ago when she came over at 4 while my husband and I were out. I reminded her, "Didn't you promise that you wouldn't use it unless there's an emergency? So you tried to get in when there was no emergency and you broke the promise you made to us." She went red in the face, and the other family started staring, and some even laughed at her for the face she made. She suddenly got up from her seat and rushed into the kitchen, where she had a huge meltdown so loud the next-door neighbors must have heard. Literally, I've never heard a 60-plus-year-old woman throw a tantrum like that. Needless to say, dinner went pretty awkwardly, and my husband and his sister were giving me looks. My husband went off on me on the car, and said I lied and manipulated and humiliated and exposed his mum, and said he wouldn't have let me get away with it had he known. Unfortunately, my husband always thinks that his mum is doing nothing wrong, and I'm the crazy overreactor, despite trying to explain to him I feel like my voice is never heard over hers. We had an argument, and he's demanding I apologize to his mum for my childish behavior and for ruining Christmas dinner with the whole family. So, am I the jerk? So this went off unexpectedly, and I thought I'd show my husband some pretty helpful comments I found here minutes ago. But he got mad at me when he saw it and said I was nuts to talk about his family online. He demanded my phone so he could delete it, but I refused, and I went upstairs and into the bedroom. I've never seen him so agitated, and I didn't think he'd react like that, honestly. But thank you guys for your support. It really means so much. I'll update if I can. Thanks again. Yeah, your mother-in-law sounds terrible, but we need to focus on how well-trained she has your husband, too. From the sounds of things, it seemed like other family members kind of enjoyed her being called out at dinner. Classic over-controlling head-of-the-family behavior right there. Get caught dead to rights, leave the room, and throw a tantrum when you're called out. It's hard to work out how the husband can see the author as the bad guy when his mother literally broke promises and still accused the author of publicly shaming her, despite the fact that the explosive incident started with the so-called victim trying to initiate a family witch hunt at the dinner table in front of everyone. I can, to an extent, understand his anger at the wife for airing their laundry online, but it also has to be acknowledged that it was done in an anonymous forum. There's no way within reasonable boundaries that any of their friends and family could find out about this without freakish luck or actually sharing it to each other. So yeah, the in-laws are to blame. Maybe they'll stop inviting you to family events. And maybe that will be a 100% positive result. Good riddance. Entitled parents are angry that I won't babysit 5 out of the 7 days of the week. I never expected I'd be posting on here, but here I am. My brother and sister-in-law, both 32, moved back into my parents' home last week. They have 4 kids, 1, 3, 4, and 6. So of course, what was a peaceful house has turned into a chaotic mess, like a literal pigsty. Friday, my brother asked me what my day-to-day schedule was like so they can get an idea of how babysitting would work. Obviously, I went, what the frick? Because I never agreed to babysit for anyone. I sat there dumbfounded and asked him to elaborate. Apparently, my dad offered to help them with childcare by using me, despite me having classes to attend both in person and online, and I work part-time, and no one cared to check with me to see if that was okay. I flat out said no, I wasn't babysitting Monday, Friday, and they'd have to find some other solution. This upsets my sister-in-law, and she starts complaining that I act like I don't love my nieces and nephews, because I'm not willing to help them out and take care of them. Again, what the frick? My dad started complaining and told my mum to make me agree. I just got up and finished my dinner in my room because I wasn't about to deal with them guilt-tripping me. Later, my brother approached me. He showed me what was basically a weekly schedule that had the hours they worked and the hours I was expected to look after the kids. All 4 because the 6-year-old is homeschooling at the moment. To spare the rest of the boring details, I'd be on duty from 6 a.m. till 1 p.m., then again from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. because they wanted special time. Again, I shut that crap down and told him they were crap out of luck because I wasn't doing it. Cue my sister-in-law telling my dad I still won't do it, so he came in and started calling me selfish and lazy and said I'd have to come around eventually since they'll be living here for a while. Let me add, my dad doesn't even work and my mum does. He sits on his butt all day watching TV, and when she gets home, he doesn't even speak to her until he wants to know what she's making for dinner. They don't even trust him to take care of the 2 oldest ones. My dad can barely make a sandwich. He's volunteered my mother and I for these services before. My dad's siblings, as messed up as him, used to drop their kids off at our house back when I was a middle schooler. My mum had banned them from dropping their kids off after they ghosted us for 2 weeks with 8 kids, from both my uncles and my aunt. All of these kids were under the age of 10, by the way. Majority of the responses are telling me to move out, and I'm trying, believe me. I'm saving up enough money so that I can be set the first few months that I'm out. Hopefully, I can be moved out by December, maybe sooner. Since I'm only working part-time again, I'm not actually making enough to move out and get by on my own. My only hope is that my best friend and I will move in together. We've discussed it before, and that we'll make enough together to get by. Also, adding that my parents don't have any of my banking info, thank goodness. I closed the account they had access to when I turned 18, and I'm getting a new lock for my door because the one I currently have can be picked easily. I'm definitely going to try and get food stamps. If things progress any further from now, I'm going to try and stay with relatives, and if that doesn't work, then I'll try and rent a room. Oh, and by the way, I'm getting a buttload of messages and comments calling me useless, lazy, and selfish because I refuse to babysit and because I live at home. I'm genuinely curious. Are you all just a special kind of stupid or trolls? I refuse to believe you're all seriously so bothered by this. I've also seen a few comments about getting my mum away. Truth be told, my dad's family would no doubt ceaselessly bother her with messages until there's no tomorrow. I will talk to her about it though, she deserves the world and so much more. And I don't know who was watching the kids before they moved back, but I assume whoever it was stopped watching them because they didn't have the funds anymore, which is why they wanted me to do it for free. Well, this is a whole can of dysfunctional family worms right here. Your mum doesn't seem too bad, but your siblings are the worst for just expecting you to balance work, study, and, I can't stress this enough, 9 hours of free babysitting per day. Add on to this the sheer nerve of taking 2 hours off for themselves after loading your schedule with full-time, free caretaking jobs, and just expecting you to be okay with that. But I think the worst culprit might be your dad. Look, not everyone can work, but he's clearly just checked out of his home life if he doesn't understand that his much harder working wife and daughter can't do this stuff. If he's unwilling to at least just help out in the process. I don't know whether he's unable to work due to some other circumstance, but it sounds like he has your mum effectively trapped in that situation and that you're rightly quite enthusiastic about moving. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to give up my dream wedding dress even though it means my fiancé's family won't attend? I'm in a lot of turmoil right now, and it feels like everything is falling apart. I've never had a great relationship with my future mother-in-law. It isn't terrible, but I can sense that she doesn't like me. My fiancé is very close to his family, so there has to be some tension. I didn't invite my mother-in-law wedding dress shopping because our relationship is awkward, but I thought I'd show her a picture to make her feel included. My dress is a beautiful, flowy, beachy dress, but not technically a wedding dress and could be ordered in color. I bought it from a small local boutique that we both love. Mother-in-law said that I can't wear that dress because she brought the same one for her 50th birthday, which is 2 weeks after my wedding. Mother-in-law has already brought the dress, though in a mint green color. There's enough detail that you can see that it's clearly the same dress, and she has the receipt to prove that she got it first. Lavish birthday parties are a thing in our social circle, so I know that she's invested serious time and money in this party. I said that I'm still going to wear my dress, despite the fact that I could easily return it with no loss, because I didn't do this out of malice and I love my dress. My mother-in-law says if she wears it 2 weeks after I do, everyone's going to think that she's pathetic and copying her son's young wife. I said, sorry, but not really my problem. I actually did suggest that we go shopping for a new one for her, and I offered to pay for it. She played fake confused and said why would she need a different dress since she's never going to see me in mine. I'm done talking to her because she asked me to please not contact her anymore. Her kids have blocked me on everything, and her husband banned me from the house. Everything has gone crazy since I said that. His entire side of the family and the friends that the mother-in-law invited have all backed out of the wedding. So about 15 people, and it will be noticeable. His sisters were supposed to be in the wedding party on his side, but they've dropped out and have blocked him on everything. His stepdad won't talk to him and says he regrets raising him, and he isn't a real man because a real man would stand up for his mum. His biological dad is even on the mother-in-law's side, which doesn't actually surprise me because they're good friends. But he called us up to shame us the other night too. My fiancé is hurting and found out that his family had a big beach day and invited everyone but him. He called the mother-in-law and they talked but didn't come to a resolution. She said if I refuse to do the right thing, the only answer is that no one who's going to her party can go to the wedding as well. He tried calling his sisters-in-law and found out that they blocked him. He's wavering and said he doesn't know if he'll marry me if I wear the dress, because he thinks she is morally in the right. He only stood up for me to present a united front in case we do get married. He's mad at me now and feels like she had it first. For some information, mother-in-law has never acted like this before, truly ever. She's normally extremely laid back and doesn't show emotion and isn't really attention-seeking, which is why my fiancé is so confused. At this point, I think that the relationship with his sisters and stepdad is beyond repair for now, and I'm scared to have them at the wedding. To all the people saying I should wear it to her birthday, ha ha ha, but I'm banned, and her ex has already promised to act as a bouncer. Not that I'd ever crash it. Okay, final update. My dress is going back to the store, and I apologize to her because I can't understand it, but something deeply hurt her. My mother-in-law and my fiancé are talking for the first time in over a month. She seems exhausted and sad, but maybe there's hope. I really don't think my stepfather-in-law or my sisters-in-law will ever get over this, but we'll see. Well, I'd say I'm far more on your side than your in-laws, but this feels like a lot of people are really just sticking to their guns long past the point where literally anyone should have just stepped back and taken a different dress just to keep the peace. I guess good on you for your ultimately being the bigger person and trying to help your spouse reconcile with parts of his family. The man of the hour is in mixed status. There's a confusing mix of supporting you, wanting to break off your wedding, and being mad at you going, but it's also very hard to be in that sort of situation against your entire blood family over a dress. Ultimately, I think everyone kinda sucks here, and it's as much down to a lack of information and communication as it is to a massive surplus of bloody-minded stubbornness. Again, with a piece to my head, I would side with the bride, but I don't think this situation should have ever gone this far in the first place. Maybe, depending on how much importance you place on the wedding being the bride's special day, you'll feel more strongly. Hopefully the author and her partner's relationship was salvageable. I don't know if it sounds like future family gatherings are going to be great, to be honest. Take my front row seat and tell me to just sit behind you? If you insist. Bear with me since I'm not a great storyteller, but I thought this one needed to be here. During halftime at our local high school's football game, we went to the concession stand to get some food. Now, I didn't think this would be an issue because we were sitting with a group of people, but I laid out my stuff on the bleachers anyway. However, when we got back, we were met with a group of middle-aged people and a rather elderly lady sitting in our spot and my stuff just tossed to the side. Now, usually, I'm an extremely nice person, to the point that people are always yelling at me for being too nice and getting taken advantage of. But this week, I've had enough. I'm sick of being taken advantage of and done dealing with people's well, you know. I stood there for a minute and said, this is our seat. You took our seat, and that's extremely rude. The leader of the middle-aged ladies, who we'll call Karen, snapped back,
They said no one was sitting here. So sorry.
But made no attempt at moving, to which my husband said, "Yeah, you look really sorry." Karen motioned behind her and said,
"There's room back there."
However, there was only one small section of bleacher directly behind her and between our entire group. I thought about it for a second and realized that arguing wasn't going to get us anywhere and would just kinda make me look bad. So I smiled to my husband and said,
"Okay, let's squeeze in there."
It was like he could read my mind in that second and knew exactly what was about to happen. So, my husband and I, along with our 4 children, squeezed right up behind and beside Karen. As anyone with 4 kids, or anyone that has ever seen kids, you can probably see where this went. These kids were running on pure sugar, adrenaline, and school spirit after a long first week of school. And I made sure the youngest, a 6-year-old boy, sat right next to me, directly behind Karen and her large bleacher chair she had set up. Did I also mention that the reason we were sitting up front is because kids can't sit still. These kids like getting as close as possible to see the game, but also enjoy coming back to us to sit and talk for a bit. In any other situation, I would have made sure my kids were respectful and courteous of those around us. I would have put a stop to the screaming when our team scored, the jumping up and down, chanting with the cheerleaders, running between us and the fence, but not this night. They had no idea of the secret war that was going on, and they had a blast. I was secretly hoping the 6-year-old would spill something. Sadly, we didn't have anything super messy, and these kids would never willingly give up their food. I think it took Karen all of 5 minutes to realize her mistake. The cringing from the screams right behind her, the leaning from side to side when they were standing at the fence blocking her view, the 6-year-old happily swinging his feet back and forth, oblivious to the fact that he was repeatedly kicking the back of her seat. Karen was getting audibly and visibly annoyed from it all and kept giving me dirty looks as if to say, "Control your children," where I'd just shrug and look at my husband and say, "I tried to tell her." One by one, those in Karen's group started to leave. But Karen held on the longest and still only made it about half an hour before she decided that she couldn't take it anymore and left. Now, I'm not a complete monster. I made sure my kids didn't bump or bother the elderly lady, and I even asked Karen to move her purse she'd put behind her before it got stepped on, but even that was met with a scoff. Maybe next time, though, Karen will think twice before stealing seats from kids, because she might get more than she bargained for by inviting us to squeeze in behind her. This is fantastic. Maybe even hearing someone labeled Karen automatically puts me against them, but that's society's problem now. So now our viewers know how to bias the narrator. But back to the topic at hand. Honestly, I don't know how many people would feel entitled to take clearly held seats after the game had already started, and the ones I do know are jerks, so I'm pinning the majority of this on Karen and co. Much like the author, I'll hold off on Karen the elder. She was probably just relieved to have a place to sit and was trusting her friends to find a suitable grouping where they could all be together. I imagine that with all the stresses that come with managing a horde of children, you don't often get the chance to enjoy their antics, so I'm happy for the author in this regard as well as the very obvious joy of vengeance. I can imagine there was a fair bit of catharsis in this whole encounter. Turn those sprinting, screaming, kicking, rambunctious little vomiting volcanoes into a force for good for once, and enjoy the devastation. The restraints are off and they can release their full potential. Give in to the dark side. Glorious. My boss wouldn't accept my resignation letter. After several months of having my vacation time off requests denied, my staff being fired and not replaced, and my work hours increased without my consent, I walked into my boss's office and handed her my resignation letter. I was giving 4 weeks' notice, which I thought was really nice of me. She looks at me, says, "No, I can't deal with this today," packed her stuff and left for a day of shopping on company time. I went to my office, cleaned it out, finished off a day's work and put my keys in her mailbox. The next day I got a call from HR saying they were giving me the day off without pay to think about what I did, and that I was expected to be at work the next day. No thanks. 2 years later, I'm living my dream life. Suck it, Joan. I guess, in short, Joan works hard to get me to quit, I quit, and Joan gives the surprised Pikachu face. Thank you for your service, and screw you, Joan. I must admit I don't entirely understand why Joan thought she could just nope you out of quitting. It would only be sweeter if they were forced to give you severance, but who are we kidding? A place like this isn't going to tolerate a good union existing. Good on you for getting out and living the good life afterwards. Go forth and prosper. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.